We're going to finish just in time and then have some beer. All right. So you may have already met him, and what happened? Sorry, my screen is changing. And you definitely already heard from him earlier today, but I want to introduce you again to Jason Reed, my business partner and the founder of Seedstock. He will be moderating the next panel, which is going to explore sustainable ag innovations and technologies. Jason is descendant from a long line of farmers, and he grew up working on the very same farmland in upstate New York that has been farmed by his family since 1810. He's passionate about the potential of sustainable, innovative, new business models and technologies that will hopefully help to feed a growing population, and he's also a great business partner. I'll let Jason take it from here and introduce you to the panelists.
Great. Thank you, Robbie. Okay, so one of the benefits of being involved in the company that sets up the panels is you can cherry pick the panel that you might want to moderate. I'm really excited to be up here and to be up here with these guys. This is, I'm really excited about this panel in particular because of the eclectic nature of it. We've had great discussions so far today. It's been very produce focused. And distribution of produce, growing of produce. And in this panel, I want to talk a little bit more about technologies and approaches and business models to various different kinds of agriculture production methods that will have an impact not only today, but down the road as well. So we have a pretty eclectic and very accomplished group of people. Which I will let them do their introduction, although I'll give a brief little statement. We have Phil Cruver, I got that right? Phil Cruver, who's from, he's the CEO of Catalina Sea Ranch, which is a deep water, I'm going to let you repair what I say about this. It is a deep water shellfish growing company, and it's the first growing company to work in federally regulated waters, which he will explain why that's such a big deal and a really innovative approach to business. I'm also very interested in how sea ranches work, because I imagine by the time you get the cowboys out to them, the horses are very tired. So thank you. I've been thinking about that since about 15 minutes ago, and I had to say it or it was going to drive me insane. We also have Adam Navidi, who I mentioned earlier today, and to thank him for his sponsorship of our lunch yesterday. Adam is you have so many hyphenates that it's not even, I don't even know how to properly introduce you, but I guess I'm going to start with he's a chef, and he is a chef and an entrepreneur and a restaurateur and a caterer and a farmer, a controlled environment farmer, and runs a very sophisticated business platform that I'll let him talk about. Sanjay Rajpoot, who is very accomplished. I was reading through his resume, and I sort of stopped at his degree in chemical and nanoengineering from USC, because I didn't even know what that meant. Engineering and physics, so he needed to do something to really push himself, I guess. He started a new company called Sustainable Microfarms and designed and built something called the Genesis microcontroller. Do you call it a microcontroller?
Just controller.
Just a controller. I didn't mean to diminish its size. The Genesis controller, which allows for small-scale hydroponics solutions, which I'll, again, let him explain. And then Brent Taylor, who's the co-founder and VP of Corporate Development at a company called Beyond Meat, which I think is really interesting because they actually use agricultural products in a different way and create sustainability through a different kind of product line that I will also let him discuss. So I'm gonna turn it over if everybody could do 3, 4, 5 minutes about who they are and what they do. I guess I'll start with Phil.
Okay. What Jason said, this is a pioneering project, Catalina Sea Ranch. We're in U.S. federal waters. We're the first company to get a permit in U.S. federal waters, and what that means is if you go 3 miles outside the state of California, or any state in the United States except for Louisiana, you're in federal waters and you're regulated by one entity. That's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. If we were in state waters, i.e. 3 miles in, there would be about 11 regulatory agencies to get a permit. It would take a very long time. So this is a pioneering effort. The location is off of Huntington Beach. It's the initial site. It's 100 acres. It was 5.5 miles off of Huntington Beach. You could see some of the oil rigs out in that area. But what's really unique about it is at the water depth, there's a plateau. It's called the San Pedro Shelf. And it's typically 125 feet all throughout the entire 160,000 acres. What's important too is that it sits on a plateau that comes up from 3,000 feet of depth, of ocean depth. And there's a phenomena called upwelling. The upwelling brings up nutrients that have been laying on the floor of the ocean for eons. And those nutrients are what shellfish eat. They're called bivalve shellfish. Excuse me. And they filter these phytoplankton that come up. And that's important because I looked at aquaculture ever since I heard about the Blue Revolution 5 years ago. It turned me on. I said, oh, this has got to be the future for feeding, or the way to feed the future, the 9 billion people coming onto the planet. We've got to farm the oceans like we farm the land, as Jacques Cousteau said. But then I looked at the finfish aquaculture, and there's a lot of peril there. There's 2 big issues that we backed off of it. One is it's not sustainable because it's called food conversion ratios. You've got to put in more fish and to get out of it. So you got a lot of environmental issues involved with that. But the other thing is with that feed, that's about 60% of your operating costs. With shellfish aquaculture, it's very, very profitable. One of my partners is the acting executive for Santa Monica Seafood. He's a founding member. And he's a CPA, and he looked at the business plan. He said, Phil, I've seen 10,000 business plans. You can't get an EBITDA of 60% in the first year and scale it in 6 years to 90%. He said, it just doesn't happen. He's a believer now because he's looked at all the numbers and so forth. So anyway, here's where we are. We got the first permit from the Army Corps of Engineers in July of last year. While they have sole jurisdiction, the California Coastal Commission has the right to do what's called a consistency review. They can review any federal permit to see if it's consistent with the California Coastal Act. So they came in and exchange of lots of information, a very positive exchange. They're doing their due diligence. They want to make sure that the shellfish aquaculture gear doesn't roll up on the Huntington Beach, that it won't entangle marine mammals. I mean, there's a whole host of things that they're concerned with, but we've overcome all those. So we believe where we are right now, we think the consistency review will be finished in January. The commissioners will approve the project. We closed on our first round of funding in March. I had a very small round. I brought in strategic investors. A big barrier to entry if this thing is distribution. And so my investors are really the distributors in the shellfish market throughout the United States, the largest ones. Excuse me. We're now doing a second raise, a lot larger. We're escrowing the funds, and upon the approval, the consistency review, we'll break escrow. We can install 40 long lines on the 100 acres in about a month. We'll start seeding the long lines. We're going to do only mussels the first couple years to keep it simple. And you get a crop in 8 months. So without feeding them, just going out and putting buoys underneath the long lines. These long lines are 600 feet long. They're anchored in 120, well, this is about 150 feet of water with these brand new screw anchors, new technology. And then like in New Zealand, you drape loops continuously for 12,000 feet. So then you have a harvest of about 68,000 pounds of mussels on each long line. So we think by the end of next year, we'll have a nice crop of a couple million pounds of mussels, but we don't want to flood the market and go in. We'll be harvesting them every week and then start going twice a week and so forth. So anyway, kind of going along, long overview, but that's Catalina Sea Ranch.
Fantastic. Adam?
Yes. Actually, that sounds awesome. It'll be great to it'll be great to go surfing and pick up my mussels at the same time. You know. I'm Chef Adam Navidi, farmer. I guess a little bit of everything: dishwasher, pot, planter, salad washer, the whole 9 yards. I have a farm in Brea, sits on 65 acres. This January will be 5 years that we've been out there on those 2 locations. We have 300 goats, a couple thousand tilapia, growing 10 greenhouses, some climate controlled, some not climate controlled. We have a restaurant less than a mile away from there that's open every day called Green to Go. So if you're in Orange County or Brea, please come check it out. I think it's the most sustainable restaurant in the United States. We grow more produce for that restaurant than we pretty much don't buy produce from anywhere else. Every once in a while we'll have to get something, but we try to utilize what we have there. We don't grow our beef or any of that stuff or fish yet, or we grow the tilapia, but we don't use them in the restaurant. We also do dinners inside the greenhouse too, just called Future Foods Farms. Can you hear me? I guess you can hear me all right, yeah? Okay. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
That sounds like a really cool thing.
Yeah.
I was originally going to start out by asking who here is interested in sustainable farming to raise their hand, but I think with an audience like this, it might be a little bit foolish. So I'll tell you a little bit about Sustainable Microfarms. Found this company, which is all about giving people access to the tools that allow them to grow food and give them control over their health and sustainability. And kind of the 2 big problems we've been walking around here is cost, the affordability of farming, and one of the big things that is associated with that cost is also the amount of knowledge it really takes to understand hydroponic and greenhouse controlled environment agriculture. And that is a really big deterrent to many people wanting to actually go out and raise funds and start these types of farms. And so we founded Sustainable Microfarms on the principle to make this type of farming easier to use, easier to develop, easier to execute, and much more affordable. So our first product, which is currently in an Indiegogo campaign right now, successfully funded and still going, is called the Genesis Controller. And what this does is this allows people to not have to have any prior background understanding of hydroponics, aeroponics, nutrient film technique, greenhouse agriculture, and just grab one of these units and slap it onto a hydroponic reservoir and very easily have their nutrients managed for them, their pH managed for them, so that they don't have to know chemistry or any horticulture at all. And our goal is to allow anyone to have the tools to have access to sustainable farming. And that's kind of the principles that have guided the products we develop. And our mission is to provide people with sustainable access to high quality, healthy produce. And we're well on that path, and I come from a technology background, and I see a very massive opportunity to help a lot of people out, and that's really what drives our business forward.
How about large scale or small scale farming?
So our current product is both workable for like hobbyists as well as small to mid-scale commercial farms. It's not comparable to say an Argus or Priva controller or Praxis, but everything underneath that, if you're talking about quarter acre, half acre, or acre, our systems are being developed for those type of farms, which is, I think, the audience that I'm catering to here today. But that's enough about me. We can get into that a little bit deeper.
Great. Brent?
Thanks, guys. Hi, my name is Brent Taylor. I'm co-founder at Beyond Meat, and first off, it's awesome to be talking about agriculture and food here at UCLA. I'm an alum of UCLA, so if someone told me I'd be here fast forward 10 years, I would have told them full BS. So this is great. So give you a quick background. Beyond Meat, we focus on the production and marketing of plant-based alternatives to meat. We use a very simple cooking process that was developed over a very long time at the University of Missouri that takes all plant-based ingredients, essentially plant protein, plant fiber, and a form of oil or fat, to cook it in a way that creates the texture, appearance, and performance of animal protein. So some of our first products in the marketplace are all plant-based chicken and all plant-based beef. So we primarily use plant proteins of pea protein, soy protein, and there's a plethora of other protein options that we're looking at today. We distribute all of our products throughout Whole Foods nationally, Sprouts, Gelson's, and the broader natural foods marketplace, and we're certainly moving quite quickly into the broader grocery set today. The company was founded in 2009. We produce all of our products in the state of Missouri. Our headquarters are in El Segundo here locally, and we really are excited about the future, and I think we'll touch on some of the subjects on really what drives us at Beyond Meat, why this makes sense for the environment, human health, and other reasons.
Great, thank you. So I guess you can all see why I'm so excited to be sitting up here with all these guys. You know, I want to start with a question for Phil. You've been involved in a number of sort of cutting edge businesses, not just in the agriculture space, where there's wind energy and things like that, and, software. Separating from agriculture, you've started new businesses, you've been in this process of pushing the boundaries of innovation. What are the differences that you find in the agriculture space as opposed to other areas where you've started businesses? And what are your thoughts on that?
I'd like to address aquaculture or shellfish aquaculture. That's the only area I have a strong expertise. But with shellfish aquaculture, I was shocked. I went to New Zealand in May because I had all these New Zealand people. They're the experts. They're the largest producers, about a $200 million industry for 4.5 million people. And all the rope providers, the float providers, they all said, hey, mate, come on down and see us. So I went down in May to see them. And I thought I'd get all this knowledge about the screw anchors, the ropes, the engineering. They have no clue at all. There's a heck of a lot of opportunity in shellfish aquaculture, offshore aquaculture, for innovation. So I called my friend Reg Olson, who was my engineer in the wind energy business many years ago, and I said, man, you got to come out of retirement and help me. So we're doing things that are just very innovative. We've got new types of floats. That's about 60% of your online or your long line operating costs, capital costs. We're making the ability to raise and lower them in the event of a storm, in the event of a red tide. There's just a lot of things that no one's ever done before. It seems to be obvious, but they've never had to do it, type of thing. So,
and why do you think that is? Why do you think that you and your friend from wind energy were able to come up with new things that farmers in New Zealand who had well-established businesses didn't think of doing?
And it's a very good question. And in New Zealand, you've got this Cawthron Institute, 180 scientists. And the farmers, they just don't get together. Say, hey, mate, we've been doing this for 30 years, no innovation. In fact, they're coming up with new genetics by selective breeding. They're getting in each generation a 20% increase in growth. But the farmers don't want to do it. They want to go catch wild spat. So there's a big, there's a transition. You have to show it and prove it.
Right. Adam, most chefs, although we've had Eric on here earlier today, and he obviously cares a lot about sourcing, and a lot of chefs care about going to farmers market, and as Laura was talking about, really digging in and finding the best produce. What motivated you to actually take control of your production for your restaurants and your businesses?
Yeah, well, pretty much it's all about quality, to get the best quality possible. And there's nobody who can grow living lettuce the way I do right now, as far as I'm concerned, And we grow 25 to 30 different types of living lettuces. We grow a lot of greens, we grow microgreens, but to be able to have the staff there, the sous chefs, the cooks go in the morning at 7 o'clock, trim everything, and then, go back to the restaurant, wash everything, and be ready to open at 11 o'clock and be serving that lettuce that was just harvested at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning at 11 o'clock for lunch is I think, a unique and exclusive type of restaurant that's not out there.
And why did you choose aquaculture when you were or aquaponics when you were looking at your program?
Well, mostly it started out with, back in the day, 1998, when I started a catering company, I had a lot of clientele. I was kind of fortunate that, they wanted the best of everything. They wanted organics. They could pay the money for me to drive to Santa Monica Farmers Market or go down to Chino Farms and cruise around and find the farmers and buy the produce. But I spent a lot of time in traffic. And, that to me wasn't efficient, and everything I do in life is really about efficiency. So I started playing around like everybody does in the backyard with the dirt, with the soil, drip lines. I got 2 chocolate labs. They're eating all the drip lines up. You're dealing with the mice, the rats, the bugs. Seems like I spent more time weeding than I was harvesting. And I decided there had to be an easier way of doing it, So I kind of went back into playing around with hydroponics in the beginning, and then found out about aquaponics and just started. It was pretty much from then on. That was the only way to go. And then it went from, well, what if we if we don't keep the water temperature certain temperature? What if we don't oxygenate the water? What if we don't do this? Almost like cooking. You know, you just kind of play around with the recipes. And farming is a lot like cooking. That's what it is. I mean, there might be 100 different ways on how to grow corn, or 100 different ways how to make a blueberry muffin. But you kind of work with it and you find what works best for you, and what's most efficient, ultimately, and what uses the least amount of natural resources, and energy and time and labor, of course, is your most expensive thing in any business that you have. So that was it. That's pretty much.
And so have you found a lot of obstacles? Were there people that said that you're a chef, you're going to take focus off your business when you start farming? Were there people that were concerned about using aquaponically produced produce when you started doing it, or was this just something that people immediately embraced, including your business partners?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that was, I mean, when I started with my catering company, there was really no other business partners, so it's just, like I said, 5 years now we've been on this location, and 3 or 4 years before that I was doing it in my house, up on the roof of my house, in the backyard, in a greenhouse. I think it was the National Restaurant Association came out and did an article on me in 2009 and said, you're the first chef in the world growing your food this way, why are you doing it, you know? And that was a very similar question back then. And it was mostly, you know, most of my friends, you know, that saw me doing it said, hey, you got to keep doing this thing. Can you grow for us, you know? Other chefs. My family were like, you know, you got to be crazy to want to be a farmer, and you got to be crazy to want to be a chef. And to do both, you're pretty much out of your mind, you know? So
Have you considered being an actor as well?
Yeah. Because it's so labor intensive, you know. Like a lot of people have talked about, it's really the passion, you know, that you have for what you're serving on the plate. That's why you do it. I mean, I've gotten, you know, since growing my own food, not only for my restaurants, but we do farmers markets, we do other restaurants. You get a chance to see a lot of the farmers, get to know their story. You get to really earn a lot of respect for what they do and for the hours they put in and the hard work they put in. You know, I compare it to like a $2,000 catering event is about the same as doing a Saturday morning farmers market, which you'd be lucky if you make $200 sometimes, you know, doing that. But you're putting in that much work of loading, unloading, harvesting, cooking. You know, it's very similar. So yeah.
Has becoming a farmer changed the way you cook? Has it changed the way you think about cooking?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's, I mean, to be able to utilize things in all different stages of its growth is a great thing. I mean, to be able to use beets, you know, not only from a micro stage, but to middle points, to, you know, full size, or even grow them bigger. You know, maybe want to spin them on something and make paper out of them. You can go so many different directions when you have the product in front of you, you know? That's the biggest thing. It's the hardest thing as a chef is finding good quality ingredients and being able to consistently have them. You know, and the hardest thing for the farmer, of course, is to be able to grow everything consistently big or a certain size. Where, you know, for me as a chef, I kind of want things different sizes. It's great to be able to utilize beets in 3 or 4 different ways on one plate, you know.
So the way that the industrial sort of distribution chain, what they want actually isn't what you as the consumer of those products want. You want the variety, you want the originality, you want the different flavor profiles, and we're just trying to create homogenized product to fit through the thing. Yeah, we
want very unique and exotic. Most chefs want something that the other restaurants don't have. You know, it's kind of it's like a competition thing between us. It's a little bit so for me to be able to have these things and grow things and see them from start to finish, just gives you so much more respect. And to see the cooks and everybody else, it's not even about me anymore. It's bigger than that. It's more about, you know, everybody that comes into play with the businesses or in the kitchens or even the customer, and then being able to go, wow, I can actually taste lettuce. I'm cutting through this lettuce. I actually see the white milk actually coming out of the lettuce. It's like for me and a chef in many resorts, you know, I've been in the business for 25 years. I never knew until I grew romaine that actually romaine has great flavor. You know, you always had to put a Caesar dressing or some thick dressing on that to make it taste like something else. But when you grow it and you actually cut it and you see that white milk come out of it, it's just like, wow, you don't need a dressing. You know, very little bit of oil or vinegar, maybe just a little bit of lemon juice. I mean, anyways, I can go on and on.
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting. This sort of transitions nicely into what Sanjay's doing. You're using high technology to get back to something very primal as a chef, and now Sanjay, as a technologist, you're working. You're using cutting-edge technology, and you're applying it to agriculture, which is sometimes seen as a sort of an antique technology. what drew you with your science background and your technology background into applying those skills to agriculture?
Well, it's quite a loaded question. It goes back a while, actually. So it all started when I was 16 years old, actually. I came back from mixed martial arts practice, which I used to do quite intensely, and I watched the Discovery Channel special on the Singaporean rooftop dynaponic gardens. And I was wondering, why doesn't everybody use this, man? Like 90% less water for the same produce that's even healthier, right next to where you're going to consume it. And I just thought about that for a long time, and it sat with me. And I was always really interested in helping people out. I was raised by two humanitarian medical professors, so when I was in college studying physics and engineering, I started doing research in environmental sciences, and hydroponics came back up. And luckily, my professor I was working with, Dr. Myrna Jacobson, she referred me to a guy named Heiner Leith. Little did I know that his labs were actually used to invent hydroponics many years ago. Oh, wow. And when I went to visit the labs at UC Davis, I was excited because he told me I was going to see the state-of-the-art of hydroponic and farming technology. And I was like, this is going to be really cool. It's going to be like the IBM supercomputer. I'm going to see Mr. Watson over there. And I walked into this greenhouse, this beautiful, big glass greenhouse. You could tell that a lot of detail went into the planning of it. It's been around for a long time. And then I was very sorely disappointed. The technology
tubes and
well, it was almost like watching pneumatic tubes running this farm. It was the state of the art. It was 40-year-old technology.
Right.
Coming from a background where I've done research in polymer nanocomposites, the same stuff that they're trying to really make processors scale down and stuff like that. I'm like, what is going on here? The technology here is 40 years old, and that's why I saw there's a big opportunity here. There is the opportunity to make this much easier, much cheaper, much more accessible, more automated, and drive down the costs, because everything I saw there was run by companies about 30 to 40 years old, right, which means that they're still competing with margins that are 30 to 40 years old. And I was like, well, time to get to work. And then I spent a long 100-hour days or 100-hour weeks just working on technology, and I really got to learn a lot about hydroponics, aeroponics, controlled environment agriculture, every single variable you need to monitor. And there's probably about 9 key variables with 3 to 10 sensors each having 1 or 2 different things which it can move each variable up or down. And the picture becomes very complex when you actually really get into the details of it. It's kind of fun in a very masochistic way.
But why do you think more technologists, I mean, that actually, from the people that I know that do software design and things like that, it's a problem-solving mindset. And why do you think more technologists don't apply that to agriculture?
Again,
because they didn't do mixed martial arts?
No, that's another very loaded question. When you look at the way society has evolved, it's evolved through the specialization of labor, am I correct? Mm-hmm. Which means that the smarter people get, the less low-level labor they know about, think about, or even recognize. Right. Most people are not the 1% of people, the 0.5% of people in this room that even care about where their farms are and the quality of the produce. People are happy enough when their packaging label says organic, right, or cage-free. Technologists are so abstract. They live in the world of apps where there's high returns and very quick run times. And the smartest people are not going to put in the effort unless they see the passion behind it. Luckily, I grew up being a cook, so I was very close to my food and seeing the third world and the way that these economies have developed. I've been exposed to it. I've seen how these technologies can really improve people's lives, especially if you thought about taking the same sort of sustainable farming to places like Africa or India or China, where not only would you be making a great sustainable business, you would be actually helping out and giving people infrastructure for the first time. And that's what really drew me to the idea even more. But most technologists, farming is like, well, the problem's solved. I got food on my plate. Why? Right. Don't fix it. It ain't broke.
Right. I can see that. Well, it's actually, again, thank you for providing a great segue into Brent, because when, as I understand it, when you were at Wharton getting your MBA, you actually studied agribusiness investment in sub-Saharan Africa. Exactly. So is there, and now you're working in a business that is pushing the boundaries perhaps more than anyone here today in terms of redefining what an agricultural product is. I guess I have multiple questions, but the first question is, what pushed you to start Beyond Meat?
Yeah, so Beyond Meat was really founded upon the idea and premise of how challenged the proteins, the delivery of protein is globally today. If you look at markets such as China, India, etc., the thirst and quench for protein is increasing at an exorbitant rate. In China alone, between 1985 and 2011, the consumption of poultry has multiplied by 5-fold. The meat pie is shifting so fast in China. A lot of this is driven by the prevalence of food service. KFC, McDonald's going up every day, right? So there's this continued push, and a lot of that is driven by the income elasticity related to protein. As people earn more money, they're shifting into higher rungs of protein. And inevitably, this creates an immense challenge within the delivery and rearing of livestock. Every year, 65 billion land animals are slaughtered basically to deliver protein. And so farmyards today are really just refining grains and plant protein, primarily soy protein, to deliver animal protein to the end consumer. So through Beyond Meat, we really recognize a huge need globally to cut out that middle equation, the animal. And so the problem is that all existing meat alternatives today are just really crappy. We've all had a really bad experience with a soft tofu or that weird meat alternative that's in your corporate kitchen or something, or in the dining hall. So it really presented a huge market opportunity and environmental need. Livestock contributes about 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions, a lot of it driven by the respiration of animals. Livestock systems occupy 45% of the global surface area. So we realize that there needs to be a very efficient means of delivering protein, and that's one of the primary premises to founding the business.
So now with a company like Catalina Sea Ranch, you're finding a better and faster, easier, more profitable way to grow shellfish, which the consumer already knows shellfish, right? You're saying my mussels are better and cheaper. You're creating sort of a whole new class of food, and does that, I would assume that presents some real challenges.
Well, I don't know if sometimes my business partner Ethan and I don't necessarily say we're doing anything new per se, because this was the making of meat alternatives and products similar to ours has been done by monks in Taiwan and China and Asia at large. The way that what we've done, though, is been able to utilize a cooking process that is immensely scalable and deliver something that provides the composition and mouthfeel that consumers are used to. And so ultimately, everything that consumers purchase, regardless of what they say, it boils down to taste. If it doesn't taste right, it's just not going to move. And so I think for us, that was a key thing. What the University of Missouri had done had created a product that had the tear of chicken and the real mouthfeel, and being able to use it as a normal consumer would cook chicken in their own homes.
That's great. So now everybody up here obviously is pushing the boundaries of innovation, and I actually want to step back from some of the business model approaches and the specifics of what you guys are doing and talk about the nature of innovation itself in terms of your businesses and your approaches as entrepreneurs. I wonder, Phil, you've been in different businesses. What made you focus on, what was the process by which you discovered the Sea Ranch concept and that you decided to invest your time in it and your energy?
Originally, I looked at, mentioned when I found out about the Blue Revolution, looked at finfish. But then I started doing some comparative economics. There's we're the first offshore shellfish farm in U.S. federal waters, but up in Santa Barbara, there's a company called Santa Barbara Mariculture. His name is Bernard Friedman, and he's been doing it for 12 years, 1 mile off of Santa Barbara, in state waters. I wouldn't have been able to raise any of this money without having all the metrics, the yield, the growth, all, somebody has done it before 100 miles away. So anyway, Bernard's a friend and he's a consultant to our company, but he showed me his books. I looked at the numbers, and even at a small scale, he's got 12 long lines there. And I was so familiar with the cultivation of finfish in the cages. It was obvious. I said, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity. Second thing that happened is I started looking at the market. And we, United States, for the last 10 years, every year we import over 33 million pounds of live mussels from Prince Edward Island. So I'm saying, whoa, that's big, type of thing. So that's 3,500 air miles away. The locavores here in California, one of the biggest markets in Southern California. My business plan has us in 6 years supplanting one half of that, 14.7 million pounds. I know we could do it. It's a superior mussel. It's closer. It was like kind of a eureka moment. So, here's a market. Here's the economics. All the numbers work together. So I went to it.
Fantastic. So, Adam, you're along those same lines. You're obviously involved in a creative enterprise as a chef. So you're already applying your creative thinking in a very practical way. Now it seems that you're, at least to me, from the outside, it appears that you're applying that same kind of thinking, that same sort of outside of the box thinking to how you run your larger business. What would you say is, if you can look at your own process of thinking, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to figure out how they can apply more innovative approaches to their business, which, the restaurant business seems pretty straight ahead. You buy the food, you prepare it, you put it on a plate, you serve it, yet somehow you saw it in a much bigger, grander vision. Is there anything that you've come across as you were developing that idea that you could help other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think, every idea that I've started with, we've used business plans. But then we just pretty much threw them out, a year after, because things always change. I mean, I constantly get people that come up and talk to me about aquaponics and about the numbers. Oh, I figured I could do this, and I could do this, and I could do that. And it's like, you don't account for, mishaps, things happening all the time, a great white shark swimming through the net and, tearing out a bunch of long lines or something, or mice or squirrels getting into a greenhouse and just having a heyday, in there. So there's always something that kind of throws that part out of whack. So for me, I just kind of, we constantly just keep recreating it, all the time, the plan and the numbers. I think maybe now, like we're saying, almost 5 years in January, maybe now we're actually doing the as much growing and as much selling as we thought we were going to do in year one or in the first 4 or 5 months, But we had all these things come down, and it was like, you can only, and for me, I can only focus on something for so long. I got the farm and I have the restaurant. And some days you're just putting out fires. There's while I'm here right now, someone's dislocated their shoulder, someone called out sick, and something's happened at the farm. They shut the water off or something. So you constantly got to be, that's the
right.
Yeah, limbo.
So Sanjay, when you were going through your process before the 100-hour days or during the 100-hour days, when you started, I'm sure it felt like when you started to narrow in on, so you'd seen this hydroponic system and you knew that there were opportunities in the space, how did you decide to focus your energies on the Genesis in particular, and what are there other areas that you see in the hydroponic space that you want to focus on for your next project? I'm trying to get every question to be loaded.
There's just a lot there.
Yeah.
So I took the approach of solve the hardest thing first. Very untraditional. But the hardest thing about growing food using hydroponics is properly feeding the plants. Mm-hmm. If you screw up one variable or one thing, you're going to see a result in your plants. You might be able to grow tomatoes all the way through to harvest and not get them to turn the right color. You might be able to get lettuce to grow to a certain size and never go further than that, all because you messed up the chemistry of what's in the water. So building a system that can actively monitor this and maintain it was very important, because every other variable is oversimplified, it's on or off, up or down. Right. But with chemistry, it's kind of like there's 20 things in the water, and if there's 5 things in higher concentration than these 5 things, then they might just stick together and fall out of the water. And if you, say, add A and B at 2 different times, they're just not going to dissolve. And things like that were very complex. So decided to go with the most complex thing first, and something that the market doesn't really have, the marketplace doesn't have. Like our product is, less than 1/3 the cost of any competing solution. And we are constantly striving to make it more affordable. Everything we make is we are trying to make sure that it is way better than what's out there, because we really want to grow this industry. We want more people to be able to control their health and help people out. So, I mean, the process was really hard, but after studying enough up in UC Davis or with environmental professors here, the hardest variable I found out was the thing that I specialized in, which was chemistry and chemical engineering. So, so that's what we solved first, and from there, we do want to go into every other variable, all 9. The big opportunities lie in applying machine learning and big data techniques to this sort of farming, because most people see this as a single input, single output system for each variable, where, if I'm trying to control humidity, it's just like make humidity at 1. Is it at 1? No. Is it at 2? Make it go back to 1. Is it at 0? Bring it back to 1. But everybody treats every variable like that, single input, single output. But realistically, when you're looking at the plants, every single variable is affecting that plant's growth. And when you start collecting enough data and applying analytic techniques to it, you can create algorithms which are way smarter than any human can come up with.
And you start realizing relationships that aren't immediately obvious.
Well,
right?
I'm not. The computer is.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
Okay. So I want to make sure, because everybody appears so interesting, I want to make sure that we have time for audience questions. But I want to have a little fun sort of in the formal section of the panel, and I want to challenge each of you and put you on the spot a little bit. We've been talking about, we started this morning, we talked a lot about fundamentals of farming, and we talked about where we are and businesses very practically that are growing. And you all have created practical, innovative businesses that are working. But I'd like to just take a second and take away the business model and take away the numbers and take away all the reasons why people are going to say, no, that's not going to work and whatever. And I want to ask each of you, if you had to look forward to the year 2050, if you had to think that far into the future, what do you think we're going to look back and say is the most important emerging technology, or what do you think the future of agriculture is going to look like in a particular way? And I'm going to start by putting Brent on the spot first.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I would, if I look forward to 2050, all of us at Beyond Meat, Ethan and I, we're really adamant about the thinking that we're going to look back as a society and thought it was ridiculous to rear animals to eat meat. And just to clarify, I do eat meat, and we're not a bunch of crazy vegans at Beyond Meat, and I think we're really trying to build a culture that is accepting of people who do, and we think it's a necessity to do that. And so one of our investors is Biz Stone, the founder of Twitter, and one of his jokes, he's like, he looks to the future, and he seems to think that sitting in a restaurant will be like smoking a cigarette if you're eating meat. He's like, oh, can you take that outside? So again, I think it has a very optimistic approach to the marketplace, but we've yet to see technology or just good tasting products that could really deliver that positive experience. So that's what we would hope to see.
So by 2050, I'll be eating at home a lot, is what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
I'll be in a closet with my steak, just hiding.
Well, we really want to be able to provide convenience to the end consumer and young professionals and everyone out there. And I think when I consider the global context, and we talked about Asia, and I look at sub-Saharan Africa and Africa in general as a real sleeping giant of meat consumption. And meat is a real luxury good in these marketplaces, and you're going to see something that will shift so dramatically from today to 2050. And people's adoption of meat occurs so rapidly over time. Here in the United States, we didn't even eat chicken before 1925, really. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it and you look at the numbers. It's pretty staggering. So we're really excited, and we think that change can happen pretty rapidly over time to hit 2050.
I love it. Sanjay?
I hate to be a little bit contrarian here, but I think by 2050, one thing that's going to occur is, especially regarding meat consumption, is a lot of it's going to be grown in vitro in plants that are very similar to hydroponic farms, where you can control your inputs and output systems so that it's a very defined relationship, and everything that is produced is going to be much closer to wherever it's going to be consumed. Mm-hmm. But I wholly believed and hoped for non-vegetarian meat, which will probably be grown in a system like a test tube or like a floating hammock. I mean, there's been a lot of activity in this area.
They said the first burger was served not that long ago, several months ago.
$50,000, right?
Yeah, that was a very expensive burger. But I know that there's been several cascading investments, especially starting from companies like the Founders Fund, mm-hmm. which was founded by Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal and first investor in Facebook. He's invested in a couple companies aiming at test tube meats, and they generally try to think very far ahead. I wholly believe that will be a solution to our meat problem, because methane gas, greenhouse gases, and the whole consumption of meat is very inefficient. I'm sure you guys know the biomass pyramid. Every layer up, only 10% of the energy gets transferred. The same thing will be applied to food. Local food production will be something that is common, and communities will be built around this, because it just doesn't make sense to have huge distribution networks. It's just inefficient. Besides that, I hope to be living on Mars.
Huh? Well, then you'll definitely need the hydroponic system
on
Mars. It's not, you can't do a lot of in the ground out there, I've noticed. Adam?
I would say, I agree probably with both of you a little bit, but maybe more towards Brent. I think there's going to be a lot more leafy green. People be eating more vegetable-based diets. I think, I don't know if the attraction, being a chef too, you think I'd go with you more, the meats, but I don't know if people are going to have that attraction to meat growing on a machine, or in vitro. I think it's one thing to have your lettuce and your greens doing that, but another thing to have, an animal you don't even want to pet or talk to or look at or anything. Yeah. So we're actually doing, at the farm right now, I'm actually growing lettuce in vertical tubes, in test tubes. So that someday we can, I've made this wooden plate that we can actually put the test tube in. You put the dressing over the top, and you actually eat the lettuce while it's living, still. And you can see the roots, and maybe we do something different with the roots too that are edible as well. But that's awesome. I think urban farming I think is going to be huge. I think people will be growing in the neighborhood. I think right now we see a lot of people that come into the restaurant. Couples that come in every day, lunch and dinner. They say, it's more expensive for us to go to a grocery store and buy Mary's organic free-range chicken and to buy the organic produce and to make dinner at home with the electricity and the gas than it is to come to your restaurant and have you make it for us. So, I think that's going to be a big part in the future too. I also think that restaurants are going to be learning more and more about aquaponics. It was fun to hear Eric talk about aquaponics. That that's, I think, consumers are going to demand that every restaurant is, serves local food or is growing it themselves or is tied in with the farmer, has a relationship straight across. Some people call me the survivor chef too, out there, because it's like I'm always making something out of whatever, building different systems out of whatever we can find. I don't always consider myself to be innovative. I think sometimes I'm more resourceful. Because I'm using the resources that I have to create something to grow food out of that you probably wouldn't normally grow food out of. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Phil, finish us off. Dream big.
All right. In the aquaculture industry, it's going to be selective breeding. The aquaculture industry has been slow to adopt selective breeding like plants and animals. And now that just last September, they sequenced the oyster gene, and they're doing some really innovative things. So in 2050, let me give you a practical example. I mentioned that in Cawthron Institute, they've had now 5 generations and 20% gain from each generation, and qualities of faster growth, better meat-to-shell ratios, and so forth. I'm working now with USC's, it's called their Molecular and Computational Biological Department. And they're doing just incredible things. Here's what they propose. in Cawthron, when they do typical selective breeding, you get one generation, you find out the progeny, what qualities you want, bigger shell, look better, that type of thing, and you breed those. It's a very slow process. They've come up with a way using modern technology, digital technologies, whereby we could take the scanning, take the genome from Cawthron that they've done for the last 5 years, put them in these high speed computers, and figure out the sequence. They call them sweeps. And then you go and you buy reagents. And when the shellfish spawn, you throw the reagents in there that are programmed to knock out the undesirable traits rather than the slow, tedious process of breeding in the good traits. And it's not theoretical. It's been done with chickpeas at USC, with fruit flies, and now we're going to try it with shellfish. So in the future, I think it's going to be, we're not going to grow them in 8 months. It'll be 3 months, and it'll be 3 times as big, and all loaded with omega-3. We'll be able to breed that in there too.
And they'll taste great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. So I want to open the floor to questions. If anybody has any, please make your way over to any of the microphones. Yeah, there we go. There's the run. 8 minutes. Oh, I feel good about that. Please. Yeah.
And comment and then 2 questions. Comment is that 25 years ago, when I was a senior at Purdue University, we ate meat that had been grown in a petri dish. And we were told that in 25 years, we'd all be eating meat this way. So maybe we ought to think about recalculating the timetable on in vitro meat. That's just a comment. Then the question for Brent is, I can't remember if you said your product was in the market or not, but 2 questions. What do you project a price per pound of ground alternative meat? And then are you actually going to call it beef and chicken? Or how will you refer to this product in the marketplace?
Yeah, good questions. And so the first point on the name, all of our products are marketed as Beyond Meat chicken-free strips or Beyond Meat beef-free crumbles. So there's a lot of rules and regulations around the standards of identity related to animal protein within the grocery, but that's the primary labeling that we've gone with. On a price per pound basis, in the marketplace, we sell a 12-ounce tray. It looks like exactly how you would buy chicken and other meats. And so where you could see the product in there, we merchandise it, or it's merchandised by Whole Foods and other grocers for approximately $7 per pound. So when you think of that on a relationship basis, natural, antibiotic-free, organic chicken, or however you want to cut it, typically would be around $12 to $15 per pound. So it is much cheaper on a relative basis if you consider it as a price point versus those sorts of cooked products in the marketplace. Versus raw products, most chicken in the United States, butcher would come as cheap as $2.99 per pound, and all the way up to $7, $8 a pound. But it all depends, of course, what cuts you're talking about. The beef would most likely be on a similar pricing per pound basis. The beef is that we're launching. It's 100% pea protein derived, gluten-free product. All of our products are gluten-free. And so we haven't launched the product yet, but it would expect to be in a similar pricing range.
Great. Over here?
Question for Phil first. The computational biological manipulation of shellfish genomes in the future. What could possibly go wrong?
No. And it's not GMO. This is all just natural. It's not hereditary. So.
And then for Sanjay, are you looking at control and monitoring mechanisms for aquaponics?
Good question.
Or would you rather not say?
You know, some of our technology is currently capable of addressing a lot of the needs for aquaponics. We're not going out and publicly saying it is. It's a little bit more complex of an environment when you're dealing with 2 separate ecosystems that are interacting very, very intensely. And I wouldn't want to say that, yes, it works, and yes, we're working on it, because it is a very complex problem, much more complex than hydroponics or aeroponics.
So is it still fall in the realm of art in terms of managing those systems?
You know, biology, it's the reason why most engineers stay away from it, because there's just a large amount of probability. And when you're trying, you know, if you ever went outside like A, B, or C plants with N1, N2, and N3 fish, which someone will do,
right,
it probably wouldn't work. So let's not talk about that today.
So he's boldly claiming that his system works perfectly for aquaponics. Next question.
My name is Steve Davey with Our Foods. I wanted to ask, and didn't hear on the last panel or this panel, a value that drew a lot of us to the situation we're here today, and that's the nutrient value. The symbiosis of food and humans. I mean, we're two different species, yet we need one another. So where is the value with the beef, with what we're doing in hydroponics and aquaponics, to what the human being needs to grow properly, especially as a child? So I would like to focus on the nutrient value. As far as Phil goes, I know that shellfish also cleans the water while it's out there instead of help pollute it. So that's great, but I'd like to hear more about the nutrient value from you gentlemen about how to get things into the market. Not just looks, not just weight, not just
So the biggest reasons why, today, if you look at this room today, I would say literally that entire side on a percentage basis, Americans are seeking to reduce their meat consumption, but they're doing it in ways they're either looking for meat alternatives, but they're also looking for Greek yogurt and whatnot. But so we take health and wellness very seriously. All of our products, if you take the chicken, it's 20 grams of complete protein per serving. So it's exactly comparable to if you were to buy cooked chicken, cholesterol-free, saturated and trans fat-free. And also when you consider the broader context of food safety within the system, as we all know what happened to Foster Farms recently, where salmonella really is omnipresent within the poultry space. So, not to say that we are salmonella-free or it couldn't happen to us, but it's not omnipresent within plant proteins in the way we make it. So we're delivering something with comparable protein. We believe it's healthier for a human being.
And Adam, I'd love to hear your opinion of that, because you're sort of at the intersection not just of nutrition, but also of that human connection to food, being that you're not only growing the hydroponic and aquaponic produce, but you're also preparing it and seeing that interaction with the consumer, which I think addresses sort of the human element that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's the greatest part for me. One of them is seeing the customers come in and the fact that they say, hey, we've lost 40 pounds, we've been eating here every day religiously for the last couple months, or we've lost 80 pounds. Or it's pretty amazing, the stories. And I think they're going to be putting them up on the website, actually, and the people are that big of fans of the food that we're growing, but we're serving, that they've given them the rights to put them on the website and kind of make them the spokesperson a little bit for the things. But that's the food that we grow, the produce. I mean, that's super. It's more nutritious, I think, when it's fresh. You lose a certain amount of nutrients, every 24 hours, right? It breaks down. They say like a lot of lettuce and stuff within 7 to 10 days has none of the nutrient value that it had before. There's a lot of different statistics out there. That I could probably ramble off a bunch, but take a while. Yeah.
That's good. I think we're good. Okay. Another question?
Hi, Ryan Glatt with a disaster relief nonprofit called Hands of Light in Action. I have a question for all you guys. With an increasing population, exponentially increasing, and paralleled with that is a lot of organic waste going on. How come I haven't heard anyone talk about using mycology, both as a waste waste management component, but also as a food source? I mean, when you look at mushrooms, you have a lot of great amino acid complexes. You have only non-animal source of B12, zinc, magnesium, HIV-fighting chemicals. Have you guys looked at this as a food source?
Yeah, I think looking at it within their plant protein in general, there's a lot of waste that's created where protein is the byproduct within starch industries and for oil extraction, et cetera. So I think it's a very interesting proposition when you consider the ability to use a very cheap source of plant protein that would be a waste factor in another sector. So absolutely, I think it's interesting.
To follow up on that point, I would say personally I have not done any study with mushrooms, and I will say that scientifically speaking, we know less about mushrooms than we know about coral. And we know about 1% to 2% of the coral that exists under the sea. It's an area of active research. So is eating insects, because that's also a good source of protein and amino acids and carbohydrates. That's very prevalent all over the world. But I don't know about the future of that area because mycology is extremely complex, like all things in biology, but that one is huge.
I'm just saying that a grasshopper shiitake mushroom burger sounds pretty good. That's all I'm saying.
I think the quote earlier was "yum." Was that?
Yeah. We'll take it. Yeah, we'll take
grow that
into
grasshopper
account,
in the
yeah.
test tube. Yeah, please.
Another question over here.
Yeah, I'm Mike Boyd with OG Farms. This is Adam. Adam, you've been in business, and then you seem to have a very wide range of business. Do you see the future in restaurants actually ordering their food to be grown by the aquaponic farmers for their specific restaurants for their specific needs? Would you see that as a viable business or for the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that. I think, right now, a restaurant, you got to, before I had the farm, I had to go and deal with like 60 different vendors, to try to find the right ingredients. So, a lot of times, like I said, I'd drive down to Chino Farms or I'd go up to the Santa Monica farmers markets. And even then, sometimes you didn't find what you're looking for because it's always changing every week. And, maybe you wrote a menu or something for a catering event and you needed those items that you thought were there last week, were going to be there this week. Hopefully that's what they do. Hopefully a lot of chefs move, and I think they're going to in the future, they're going to move towards partnering up with farmers and having farmers grow certain items for them. So I just heard the bird go off there.
That's more for me. One last question.
I work for Solutions Farms. We're an aquaponic farm in San Diego. I actually had two questions. Adam, I was curious if you could touch on why you believe that we haven't seen commercial success in aquaponics on the same scale that we have seen on hydroponics. And then for Phil, I was wondering if you could let me know, how do you respond when people express concerns regarding possible contamination for your aquaculture products when they're produced in the ocean?
All right.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I guess. Or do you want to answer? Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, like today on the way here, I actually Wikipedia'd aquaponics for the first time ever, I think when I started doing aquaponics, it wasn't even in Wikipedia. So it was interesting to see that there was somebody actually growing in Watsonville, they said was the largest aquaponic farmer in the world, was in California. They had 10 acres. I'm like, wow, we got 65 acres, but we're growing on 25 acres. So I'm like, maybe we need to contact Wikipedia, but no. But that's neither here nor there. The reason why I bring that up is because that company, they had gone into business. I think there was just not the right setting. Efficiency and economics is huge. For me, I don't. I've been sitting here listening to all the different panels today, and I probably could have talked on any one of them. But we don't have a huge labor force out there. I got one guy that works full time, and then it's me and the cooks in the morning, and then it's me in the afternoon, and then it's me at the end of the night. I think the other benefit that we have with where we're at is our location. The weather's pretty good. We get some days where it gets above 100 degrees, 110 degrees. We've set up some water walls and things like that to cool things down. We got a pretty good system set up where we're not running a ton of electricity on everything. And then even the deal that we have with our landlord, the electricity is pretty economical. I think that's a huge part. If you have a hydroponic, or like yesterday we went and saw Howlings, they have, they've put in this whole infrastructure, this whole system to produce their own electricity and carbon monoxide and things like that, CO2. And that's that's kind of what you need, when you start dealing. The big difference with hydroponics and aquaponics is, you're saying you would never want to mess with those variables. Is hydroponics, you have something happen in the middle of the night and you lose all the water. Aquaponics, you got the chance to kill a bunch of fish off and lose a bunch of money with the fish. I'll never forget the time that I walked in the morning and saw 500, full-size tilapia floating on top of the water because one of the pumps shot off and hit the circuit board. That just about made me say, forget it, Thankfully, I had a guy who told me, he says, you can't consider yourself a fish farmer until you kill 10,000 fish, So that kind of just motivated me to keep going, Maybe a little sick, but, yeah.
Phil?
Shellfish aquaculture, or shellfish, are bivalves, and they filter the water. So they actually clean the water. They take nutrients out. With our farm out in the middle of the 160,000 acre San Pedro Shelf, there will be no negative effect, no positive effect, no effect, because it's flushing of the water. However, we actually have another program we're working with our nonprofit. It's called KZO Education, where we're restoring the native Olympia oyster in Alamitos Bay. That's where we live. And they've empirically measured how much nutrients that each bivalve could take out of the water. So in a small trapped area like a bay, it actually cleans the water.
That's great. I want to thank everybody for being on the panel. Brent, Sanjay, Adam, and Phil, thank you very much. And bring up Robbie to introduce the next panel.